Shalom. Let's start off by giving all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahawashi, Bahashem, Rakakadash, double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Citations to the hopeful elect that's pushing his truth across four corners of the earth and all faith, truth, and sincerity. Just I'm on the bar back again, us sitting. Just want to go into about, how the Lord Yahawashi gonna return. when when the Lord Yahawashi returns, makes his return, his glorious return. Everyone that, gonna see the Lord is gonna, tremble and be afraid and, seeing the Lord Yahawashi return, everyone's gonna be, in the all mindset of, hey, that's him. That's the one, that's Yahawashi, and he's gonna return, and take down the so-called white man, Esau, my devils as in power, this beast system. He's gonna take it down, man, and remove this so-called white man, Esau, my devil, the red Edomite devils. He's gonna remove them out of the power seat, take them down. But I'm gonna start off with 2nd Ezra 13:1. And it came to pass after 7 days, I dreamed a dream by night. Verse 2, and lo, there arose a wind from the sea, that it moved it all the ways thereof. verse 3. And I beheld, and lo, that man waxed strong with the thousands of heaven. And when he turned his countenance to look, all the things trembled that were seen under him. So the Lord Yahawashi, it says, lo, that man waxed strong with 1,000 heaven. So who's that man? That's Yahawashi. So the Lord Yahawashi, the Lord Yahawashi, who y'all call Jebus, that's the real name of Lord Yahawashi. He's gonna return in the chariot, so-called UFO, with the thousands of heaven, the armies, in the chariots, the angels, the chariots and so-called UFOs, the angels, So it said when he turned his countenance to look, all things trembled that were seen under him. So the Lord Yahawashi, he gonna, he gonna make that look. He gonna turn. He gonna look. He gonna, and people gonna see the Lord Yahawashi. He makes it. It shows himself. And people gonna be, trembling, shaking, like, oh shit, it's him. And you're gonna see that power and glory of the Lord Yahawashi and the angels, it's gonna shake. It's gonna shake people. That's how powerful. The powerful. That's how powerful the Lord Yahawashi. He's gonna make his return. It's gonna be his power and glory. Gonna be just. It's gonna be overwhelming. And people gonna feel it. They gonna know. They gonna feel that. That's him. That's the Lord. But I'm gonna go to Revelation 1:7. Behold, he cometh with clouds, and every eye shall see him, and they also which pierced him, and all kindreds of the earth shall wail because of him. Even so, amen, amen. So, hey, behold, he cometh with clouds, and so the clouds are the so-called the clouds are the so-called UFOs, the chariots, And it said every eye shall see him. So everyone's gonna see him. Everyone's gonna see the Lord Yahawashi return, man. Hey, man, bro. I'm gonna say this, be myself first. Foremost, hopefully, I'm probably rushing up to skate driver judge the Lord Yahawashi because, man, you just gotta have in mind, like, when he returns, like, is you gonna be of that number and to have mercy about Lord Yahawashi? Because once he returns, he's here, he's back, and if you ain't right, you done, you done for, and because it says, it said those also that pierced him, and so the one that pierced him, is here, and he gonna be here once the Lord Yahawashi returns, and the so-called UFO chariot, You know, and it's all kindreds of the earth shall wail because of him. So people gonna be wailing and, you know what I'm saying, kneeling, crying, you know, and, you know, just, and all like, oh, you know, no, it's him, you know. Oh no, please have mercy, you know, especially so-called Negro, Latino, Native Israelites, because the apostles and the elders and Brother Great Millstone been for years been teaching and telling you about the, you know, return of the Lord Yahawashi, you know, it's gonna come about, you know, and when it does, you know, people just gonna be like, you know, it's him, you know, it's like, man, you know, because if you ain't right with the Lord Yahawashi, you know, if you ain't part of the righteous number, because the deliverance and mercy is only for the so-called Negro, Latino natives, which are Israelites, you know. So that's who's gonna have, you know, but the elect, I say the elect of the Israelites in these times, excuse me, the elect of the so-called Negro, Latino natives is gonna receive the mercies of the Lord Yahawashi. Go see the mercy and deliverance of the Lord Yahawashi when he returns. And hopefully I'm probably righteous knowing those that believe in Lord Yahawashi hope to be, because if not, then you're just gonna be of that 2/3 number and, you know, and be destroyed with everybody else, you know. And, you know, and had to deal with the wrath and judgment of the Lord Yahawashi when he returns, you know. But let me see him go back. 2nd Ezra 13:4. And whensoever the voice went out of his mouth, all day burned that heard his voice, like as the earth filleth when it filleth the fire. You know, because like I said, Lord Yahawashi, like, you know, the lazy being chair circle your foes, or, you know, however come, you know, the fire that's gonna come about from him, from Lord Yahawashi. You know, people gonna feel it. You know, it's gonna like, man, the power of the Lord Yahawashi voice is gonna, you know, have people just, you know, feel it. You know, and it's gonna, you know, they say all they burned that heard his voice. So, you know, they're gonna feel that wrath and judgment of the Lord Yahawashi, you know, and he, you know, come with that fire, man. But 2nd Ezra 13:5. After this I beheld, and lo, therefore was gathered together a multitude of men out of number from the four winds of the heaven to subdue the man that came out of the sea. You know, so, you know, you're gonna have, like I say, you know, in the midst of World War III, you know, you're gonna have these other nations, you know, so forth, gonna stop doing what they doing, you know, stop going at each other, whatever, and turn to fight the Lord Yahawashi and the angels. The chariot so-called UFOs, the so-called UFOs, the so-called UFOs, which are the chariots. You know, and try to fight the Lord and the angels. You know, you're gonna have those armies, you know, those pilot jet fighters, you know, coming, you know, and they try to, you know, fight the Lord, you know, a movie kind of, you know, kind of have a visual of that is Independence Day, you could say, you know, the first one. So, you know, it's kind of that you know, kind of that vision of it, kind of, but, you know, but it's gonna be more, a little bit more, you know, different than that, how they, you know, portrayed it, but it's gonna be more different and dramatic than that. But yeah, it's like, you know, they're gonna be like, man, we gotta go fight this Lord, you know, we gotta go fight him. You know, we gotta go fight them, that you know, that big ship and that man and so forth and the angels. But 2nd Ezra 13:6. But I beheld, and lo, he had graved up himself a great mountain, and he flew upon it. 2nd Ezra 13:7. But where I have seen the region, a place whereout the hill was graven, and I could not. 2nd Ezra 13:8. And after this I beheld, and lo, all that which were gathered together to subdue to him were so afraid, yet thus fright. But they got, but you don't like say they want to fight the Lord, you know, the angels so-called the so-called UFOs, the chariots, the so-called UFOs. I say, you know, they gonna be like, they were like, oh shit, because it's gonna be something that it's like, man, do we stand a chance of this shit? You know what I'm saying? But but hey, the most high, the Lord Yahawashi is a man of war. Yahawashi is a man of war, so he gonna put him in, put it in there, hey, to fight. Nah, ain't no you ain't running from this. You know what I'm saying? Come on with it. You know what I'm saying? Ain't no goddamn and scared nothing. And come on, shit. Come on, bring it. Yahawashi, he's a man of war, man. So, but I say nobody can't resist the will of the Lord. So if it's gotta happen, it's gotta happen. But 2 13:8, and lo, as he saw the violence of the multitude that came, he neither he neither lifted up his hand nor held sword nor any instrument of war. Verse 10, 2 Ezra 13:10. But only I saw that he sent out of his mouth as it had been a blast of fire, and out of his lips a flaming breath, and out of his tongue he cast out sparks and tempests. So I'll go to verse 11, 2 Ezra 13:11. And they were all mixed it together, the blast of fire, the flaming breath, and the great tempest, and fell with violence upon the multitude which was prepared to fight, and burned them up every one, so that upon a sudden of innumerable multitude nothing was to be perceived, but only dust and smoke. Only dust and smell of smoke. When I saw this, I was afraid. So that's what's gonna happen. Lord Yahawashi gonna know those laser beams for the chariots, and Lord Yahawashi gonna show his power. He gonna bring no instrument of war, and nothing like just that fire gonna come out, man. It's gonna burn up everyone, man. They're gonna fight the Lord. Those that gonna come against the Lord, fight the Lord. And those that ain't right gonna get zapped by the laser beam, by the fire, by the Lord. And ultimately thermonuclear missiles. And like I said, a movie that shows, people getting zapped, and turning to dust is the movie, World of the Wars, And so, no, it's War of the Worlds, or it's Wars of the Worlds, or something like that. It's one of the two. It's World of the Wars, or Wars of the Worlds. Excuse me, Worlds. Excuse me. It's Wars of the Worlds, something like that. I think it's one of the two. I'm saying it wrong, but I think it's Wars of the Worlds, something like that. I think it's that though, but yeah, that's how it's gonna be. That movie, with Tom Cruise in it. So let's see. I didn't want to make this too long. So again, I hope this was edifying. So again, I like to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem.